Hi there. I thought I'd come back after one of my videos because I got off asked by a couple of people a really good question. And that question was around the idea of what is innovation and how do people go about designing new products, services, and other offerings. And I was trying to explain, trying to think how to explain rather, that innovation is not just about new, and that sometimes innovation is around adaptation. It's taking something that already exists and using it for something new. And I was trying to think of a really good example, and something came to mind for me, and that is Star Wars. Star Wars, as you probably know, was a absolute blockbuster. It was a revelation in cinema in the 1970s. It's become a cult classic. Star Wars at the time, it was a real unknown. It was a bit of a gamble. Now, if you've seen it, you're probably aware that it's really a story of good versus evil, cowboys versus Indians. But basing it in space, it was a challenge. It was something new. We'd had the likes of Buck Rogers in the 21st century, old versions of I can't think of the name now. There were old versions of science fiction movies, but there was nothing quite as revolutionary, as advanced, or let's face it, as expensive as Star Wars. George Lucas really took on a real big challenge. So bearing in mind that there was a huge amount of special effects, budgets were really important. Now, out of this movie, we gained a couple of iconic characters: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, Han Solo, but also the stormtroopers with their white uniforms, their mean, confusing image. The two things we probably remember about the stormtroopers: one, the white uniform, and the other, their blaster gun. Now, that blaster gun in particular was a really important piece of innovation. The blaster gun itself looked quite revolutionary, but actually came from the 1950s. And the origins for what was used from the 1950s actually came from the 30s and 40s. The blaster gun, you probably recognize it, looks like one of these. I want to thank you, museum, for lending me this for this video, by the way. So this is the blaster gun that everybody used as a stormtrooper. Probably recognise the parts of it, and it was used not just by the stormtroopers, but you saw Luke Skywalker running around shooting their little ray gun effects, etc. And this is quite iconic, and at Comic Cons and everywhere else nowadays, you see people running around with these. Now, the reality is, this was nothing new. So something as iconic as the blaster was not an innovation, but a reuse. What it is, in reality, is, if I remember how to do this, a British Army machine gun. I'm not very good at this. There we go. So something that we saw as being iconic, representing the future in a very new and innovative way, was in fact an old invention. So our Star Wars blaster was nothing new at all. There was nothing creative, there was nothing innovative about it. It was an adaptation. They took something that already existed and they repurposed it. And in repurposing it, it's become quite iconic. So, in our business lives, when we think about innovation, we don't want to think of innovation as just being about creating something new, about being really off the wall creative and creating being obscure in terms of what we're doing. Sometimes real innovation and creativity comes from adaptation. So we can look to modern culture and see what's out there today. We can see what products, services, people, skills, etc., are out there today, and see how do we take that and use that in a way that shows us something completely different. So innovation doesn't have to be new. It just needs to be creative. It's about adaptation as well as raw creation. Anyway, again, I want to thank the museum for lending me that piece. Apologies for looking quite clumsy, you trying to set it up, but I hope this helped. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to give me a shout. But what I want to urge you is when you're thinking about something new, don't forget what already exists. Okay, I've been Rachel Evans. I hope you have a great day. I look forward to talking to you in my next video. But for now, you have a great day.